See, God, oftentimes we just, our minds are so small, and I don't mean that to offend you. It's just true. Our minds we can't comprehend what God is doing. We can't see the full picture. All we see is what's right in front of us. All that Joseph saw was suffering, prison, in a place of leadership, and then accused, and then all of his different robes taken from him. This is all that Joseph sees, but now he looks back at the whole thing, and he doesn't even see the future yet. He doesn't even know about Jesus. He doesn't even know about the Passover. He doesn't even know about any of that. But do you see how God is doing something so much bigger than your life? And the things that are happening in your life right now are small things maybe to you, but what if they have a larger significance in the future, generations beyond you? What if the decisions that you make today are not just impacting you and your children? What if the decisions you make today impact your children and their children? And their children, and their children. The decisions that you make, the way God is using you, God is not burying you. He's planting you for purpose. And God is using you greater and greater ways than you even realize.
Hey friend, thank you for clicking on this video. I am Pastor Ruben, the lead pastor and founding pastor of this amazing church. I pray you hear a word from God that encourages your soul and gives you a new perspective on life.
So if you're just joining us, we're in a series right now called Joseph's Tears, and we're going through the life of Joseph in the Old Testament. You can find the whole story of Joseph in the book of Genesis, chapters 37 through 50. We called this series, I've been saying this weekly, we called it Joseph's Tears because Joseph has many of them. He has tears of sorrow, tears of loneliness, tears of pain. Towards the end of his life, he's got a lot of tears of joy and redemption. We're actually going to see some of that here in the story. Up to this point, actually up to a couple weeks ago, it's been very sad, right? As you look at Joseph's life, just the things that have happened to him. But now we're at the point in Joseph's life where God has redeemed him. I talked a lot last week about rock bottom and how Joseph found himself at rock bottom and how God used that for his glory and to help Joseph in his ministry. But he had all these tears, and the life of Joseph is a reminder to each of us that nothing is wasted in the hands of God. The tears that you've shed, the challenges that you've walked through, nothing is wasted in the hands of God. For God is so good at taking the broken pieces and putting them together for something beautiful. Listen to this. Whether your tears come from pain or joy, God creatively and purposefully uses them in the story he's writing in you. He's shaping you for more than just survival. He's shaping you for purpose. God is shaping you for purpose. And each and everything that you go through, God uses for his glory. Turn to the person next to you and tell him he's shaping you for purpose. Shaping you for purpose. Whether it was a bad breakup, the loss of someone, or maybe tears of joy, a job promotion or a new baby, whatever it is, God uses all of it to shape you for purpose. Last week I talked about how God used 3 rock bottom moments in Joseph's life because Joseph needed to be humbled. He had a calling on his life that he wasn't yet ready to receive when he was 17 years old. But can you blame him? How many of you were perfectly mature at the age of 17? There better not be a single hand come up in this room. Nobody, right? Nobody is ready for that. So Joseph had to walk through some stuff just to catch you up to speed on all the events that have happened. You may have missed a week, or maybe this is your first week here or whatever. Just to give you a quick summary, Joseph is born in an extremely dysfunctional family, okay? He has 11 brothers. He's got 1 sister. That's not why they're dysfunctional. Although, could you imagine feeding 12 boys, 12 teenagers? You'd have to have a farm of cows and chickens and all kinds of stuff. But he's got 11 brothers. He's got 1 sister. This is where it gets weird. He's got 4 moms at the same time and 1 dad. Yeah, I know. But and his birth mom dies when he's very young. So I guess 3 moms for the majority of his life. But he's the favorite child. Dad gives him this super cool coat, very colorful, to show everyone that he's favored. And he has dreams about his family bowing down to him. His brothers hear the dreams and they hate him for it. They plan on killing him, but instead they decide to sell him off as a slave. So he goes to Egypt. He ends up in a guy named Potiphar's house. Potiphar really likes Joseph. In fact, it seems like everywhere Joseph goes, people like him. No matter where he goes, he ends up elevating himself in status. He's just gifted in a lot of ways, I guess. So he raises himself up in Potiphar's house, and Potiphar says, "You can have everything except for my wife." And lo and behold, what ends up happening is he's falsely accused of rape by Potiphar's wife. He is now thrown into prison. While he's in prison, he meets Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker. And the cupbearer has these dreams. And Pharaoh basically tells him cupbearer is going to be restored to his position. The baker's going to die. And that happens. That's the story. But then Joseph tells the cupbearer, he says, hey, when you're back in your position and you're in Pharaoh's household, don't forget about me. Well, he forgets about him. And then Pharaoh starts having these dreams 2 years later, and then the cupbearer's like, oh, Joseph, forgot about him. 2 years. I haven't thought about him once. He's still in prison. Yeah, he could interpret your dreams for you. So Pharaoh calls in Joseph, and Pharaoh says, can you interpret my dreams? And Joseph says, no, I can't, but God can. And those dreams end up being, there's going to be 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine. And that part's hugely significant in the story of the Israelites. We're going to talk about that here a little bit today. So you have these 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine, which leads us to last week. Okay, last week I covered chapters 42 and 43. Today we're covering 44 and 45. Okay, the reason for this is we were looking at these passages, we thought, man, we can't split those up. 42 and 43 is one story, and 44 and 45 is one story. So we thought, let's just do them together. So in 42, the famine reaches Canaan. Okay, this is where Joseph's family is still living. His father's name is Jacob. Jacob has been told by all the other brothers that Joseph, his beloved son, his favorite son, is dead. That's been a lie. These brothers have been living a lie for 20 years. A lot of pain, a lot of heartache in this home. But Jacob says, hey, there's food in Egypt. The pantry's empty. Have you guys checked? I don't know if you noticed there's no food. Why don't you go buy some? The brothers are like, all right. I don't know why I put a sarcastic tone there. I just feel like he is. And so he says, go and buy some food. So they do. But they're afraid that they're going to run into Joseph. Sure enough, guess who's in charge of handing out food? Joseph, but they don't know it's Joseph. They don't recognize him. He looks different. He's probably got a beard now. He's wearing, fancy clothes, and he's completely adopted Egyptian culture. He's speaking through an interpreter. So these brothers have no clue that this is their brother from 20 years ago. But he recognizes them. They look the same. They talk the same. So he recognizes them, and he starts playing games with them. And he's like, you guys are spies. So leave one of your brothers here as a prisoner and go and get your youngest brother, Benjamin. So they do. They go and they get Benjamin. And they bring Benjamin back. And then, this is where we got to last week. Joseph does this beautiful thing. He has all the power in the world. He could do anything he wants to his brothers who sold him off as a slave. But he chooses to offer them grace. And he has them over to his house for a meal. But he still doesn't tell them who he is. This part's interesting. He gives them this meal, and he gives them with as much food as they can carry and sends them back home again. Okay? So where we're at today, they've now left Joseph's house. They're in good spirits. They've been fed. They're returning home to their father, and they feel really good because they're bringing back Benjamin with them. Remember, Dad was very afraid that something was going to happen to Benjamin because Benjamin is his last remaining son of his beloved wife, Rachel. Okay, in his mind, Joseph's dead. Benjamin's all he has left. So they feel like it's a win because they've got Benjamin. They're like, somebody got Benjamin. Make sure Benjamin, okay, you got Benjamin. All right, don't let him out of your sight. Right, they got Benjamin. They got Simeon out of prison. They're all going home, and they have all this food. Okay, so things are good. They still don't know that who Joseph is. And Joseph is not done with them yet. He's about to set a trap, okay? So here's where we're at in chapter 44, verse 1. It says, now Joseph gave these instructions to the steward of the house. Fill the man's sacks with as much food as they can carry, and put each man's silver in the mouth of the sack. Then put my cup, the silver one, in the mouth of the youngest one's sack, along with the silver for his grain. And he did as Joseph said. So he returns the silver. Significant. We're going to get into that in just a minute. All the silver that they brought. Now, this is the second time he's done this. The first time they came with silver to buy food, and Joseph gave it back. Put it back in their bags. They didn't know till they got home. They said to their dad, oh my gosh, we didn't pay for any of this food. And Dad's like, okay, well, when you go back the second time, Bring a double portion of silver. So they're like, all right. So they bring double the silver, and sure enough, Joseph puts it back in the sack. Very interesting. And then he gives them as much food as they can possibly carry. And I just want to pause for a moment and talk about the grace of God through this story. These brothers deserve prison. They deserve for Joseph to be angry with them. They shouldn't be receiving anything good from him right now. But not only does he feed them in his home, but he sends them with as much food as they can carry, and he gives them all the silver back. This has cost them nothing. They have now gotten all this food for free. Don't miss this right now. This is a picture of the grace that God lavishes on you and on me. It's a beautiful picture of what God does, the love and the forgiveness of God. Joseph represents the kind of love and grace that God has given us through Jesus. Each one of us, you, me, everybody in this room, online, everybody, you have been given more grace than you could possibly carry. It's ridiculous, the amount of grace and love that God has given you. We're not given what we deserve. Instead, God, by his grace, even just being in the presence of God during worship, that is a picture of the grace of God, his presence, and all that God does with us. It's his presence. That's the grace and the mercy and the forgiveness of God. Now let's talk about the silver for a second. The silver's significant. For those of you who were here the first week of this series, or maybe you're just familiar with the story, do you remember how Joseph ended up becoming a slave? They sold him for 20 pieces of silver. That number 20 keeps popping up a lot in this story. It's a significant number in this story. They sold him for 20 pieces of silver. In chapters 42 through 45, this is just a fun fact. The word silver shows up 20 times. Just a fun fact there. Is that on purpose? Probably. And it gets a little more crazy. How many years has it been? It's been 20 years. Now, on accident, I doubt it. Now, here's where it all comes together. The silver that was once a symbol of betrayal, now, 20 years later, becomes the object of grace, becomes the object of restoration. God is about to use the very thing that drove these brothers apart to bring them back together. Why? Because God's just that good. Because God is faithful, because God is working everything out. Don't think for a second that was on accident. Listen to this. The very thing the enemy used to break you, God can use to rebuild you. God doesn't just redeem your story. He redeems the very things that were used to hurt you. The silver that was used to hurt these brothers, to hurt Joseph, God says, no. Give it back. I know you deserve to keep the silver. Give it back. Take the high road. When they go low, you go high. When they offer you anger, you offer them forgiveness. When they take the low road, you take the high road. Christians, this is hard. When people wrong you, you feel like you've got every right to be angry, to take the low road with them, to go lower than they went. But God says they go low, you go high. Love them. The very things that were used to hurt you, God will use to redeem you. In fact, there have been many ministries that have been started through the struggle of people who sought to help others who found themselves in the same boat. Think about how many ministries out there got started because somebody walked through pain, because somebody walked through a difficult experience, and because of that experience, God called them to start something to make sure nobody else ever feels that way. I'm reminded of Hope House, one ministry we partner with on a regular basis. It's ironic. I planned this before I knew about the diaper drive. Isn't that crazy? This ministry began when two former teen moms recognized that they were not alone in their struggle. Two former teen moms came together and said, this was hard. What if we started something to help other teen moms who find themselves in our position? They discovered that 67% of teen moms live below the federal poverty line. And now they started this ministry called Hope House that currently is serving just over 250 moms and their kids. And they do a lot of incredible things. They provide free childcare. Did you guys hear that? Free. Do you know how much childcare costs? I could tell you, but I'm not going to. Free childcare for these moms who are in this program. Not only that, they provide counseling. They help them graduate from high school. They help them find jobs. They help them build a budget. They help them get back on their feet. It's an incredible ministry, and it's all because there were these two women who went through a bad experience, experienced the hurt. Do you see how God takes broken things and uses them for good? And uses them for His glory? See, God, listen to this, God uses what shattered you to shape you, and then He shows Himself faithful through you. The thing that shattered you, the thing that was the worst memory, the most difficult circumstance you found yourself in, God will use what shattered you to build you. And God will use what shattered you to reveal His goodness and His faithfulness and His mercy in your life. You know, there's people, people have this idea of God, and they get it, I think, from Christians. We haven't always been the best, have we? We haven't always responded the best. We could be better in a lot of ways. But they get this idea of God, and they picture Him as a king on a throne who scoffs at sinners. And they think, that God, He's just judgmental. They have no idea that He's the God who's worthy to be on the throne, but who came down in the middle of our mess, our brokenness, and who meets us where we're at and picks us up and makes us clean. And says, I love you. I want to redeem you. I have purpose for you in your life. That's the God that we worship. And that's the God that I know. And that's the God that I see. God takes our brokenness and shapes it for His glory. The same silver that once symbolized betrayal now symbolized grace. And it's all God working through Joseph. But He's not done yet. Joseph chooses to love and forgive. And Joseph has a plan. He still hasn't revealed to them who he is, but he's getting close. So here we are. He's got this trap, this final test for his brothers. And ultimately, you're like, why does he keep playing games with them? It's because he wants to see, have they changed? Are they honest men now? Because it's been 20 years. Who are they today? He's still trying to figure that out. So he sets this trap for them. Chapter 44, verse 3. Remember, the brothers are feeling good. The boys? They're feeling good. They're well fed. I don't know where that came from. Verse 3. As morning dawned, the men were on their way with their donkeys. They had not gone far from the city when Joseph said to his steward, go after those men at once. And when you catch up with them, say to them, why have you repaid good with evil? Isn't this the cup my master drinks from and also uses for divination? This is a wicked thing you have done. Okay, this trap is set. Joseph says, okay, they're not very far. Steward, I want you to go get them. And I want you to accuse them of stealing. You have hidden that cup. And intentionally in Benjamin's bag. Of all the brothers, I want you to hide it in Benjamin's. So he sets this trap and he says, okay, go and just mess with them a little bit. Just make them feel really bad, accuse them of stealing, and bring them back here. He's trying to see if they will betray Benjamin like they betrayed Joseph 20 years ago. Now remember, 20 years ago, Joseph was the favorite. He knows now Benjamin's the favorite. So that's why he says, put the cup in Benjamin's sack. I want to see, is Benjamin getting the same treatment that I did? And do you hate him like you hated me? Or have you forgiven him? So he puts it in Benjamin's sack, and Joseph sets the trap. Here we are in verse 6. This is, the steward catches up. It says, when he caught up with them, he repeated these words to them. But they said to him, why does my Lord say such things? Far be it from your servants to do anything like that. We even brought back to you from the land of Canaan the silver we found inside the mouths of our sacks. So why would we steal silver or gold from your master's house? If any of your servants is found to have it, he will die, and the rest of us will become my Lord's slaves. Real quick, the reason they said that is because they are so sure that none of them stole the cup. They are so sure that this is a giant mistake. They said, if any one of us is found to have it, we'll die, and the rest of us will be your slaves. Verse 10, very well then, he said, let it be as you say. Whoever is found to have it will become my slave. The rest of you will be free from blame. That's not the deal the brothers made. The steward lightens it. He's like, whoa. Nobody's killing anybody here. Hold on. One of you might become my slave. The rest of you will go free. Each of them quickly lowered his sack to the ground and opened it. Then the steward proceeded to search, beginning with the oldest and ending with the youngest. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. At this, they tore their clothes. Then they all loaded their donkeys and returned to the city. You see that a lot in Scripture. They tore their clothes. You see it in the Old Testament. You see it in the New Testament. It's just something to show intense emotion. Okay, intense agony, pain, and sadness. That's what that means. So they found it in Benjamin's sack. They tore their clothes, and they returned to the city. The brothers, I can't describe for you enough how much their hearts sank when that steward opened Benjamin's bag and found that silver cup in Benjamin's bag. Like, it's one thing that they even had the cup in general, but it's a much bigger deal that out of all of them, it's Benjamin's. Before this journey, Jacob, their father, said, if something happens to Benjamin, I will die. Like, I can't handle losing another son. I've already lost one. I can't imagine losing another one. So they're thinking about their dad, and they're thinking about the fact that over 20 years they've been lying to him. They've been watching him mourn and grieve, and they can't imagine doing that again. And what's interesting about all this is Benjamin, out of all of them, he's the most innocent. In fact, Benjamin's the only one who's innocent. He's the only brother who was not there in chapter 37 when they sold Joseph off to be a slave. Benjamin would have been too young. Joseph was 17. Benjamin was younger. He may have been 10 years old or younger. So Benjamin wasn't even there that day. He has no guilt in any of this. Benjamin is innocent. And he's incredibly significant because he's the only one who's done nothing wrong. And yet he was found to be guilty of stealing the cup. But the brothers knew there's no chance that this is accurate. Something's wrong here. But this is significant because it resembles the gospel story. I want you to think about Jesus for a second. What do we know about Jesus? Perfectly innocent, blameless, without sin. Takes the place of all of humanity to take on the sins of the world, becomes guilty. Jesus, being completely innocent, carried, and ironically, when you read in the Garden of Gethsemane, do you know what Jesus says? Take this cup from me. Isn't that interesting? It's on purpose. I'm telling you, as you read the Joseph story, connection after connection after connection to Jesus in the New Testament. How ironic. Take this cup from me. In fact, as you read this story, I want to give you, here's 9 connections for you. This is not even all of them. 9 connections between Joseph and Jesus. Listen to this. Number 1, loved by the Father, right? Both were shepherds. Both were hated by many. Both were rejected as ruler. Both were stripped of his robe, Jesus, before the crucifixion. Both of them were sold for pieces of silver. Jesus for 30 pieces of silver by a guy named Judas. Joseph, 20 by a guy named Judah. Interesting, right? Falsely accused and punished for doing nothing wrong. Number 8, raised to honor after suffering. And number 9, provided bread for the world. You see all these similarities, all these connections. I can't help but notice the connections between Jesus and Joseph. And now Benjamin, though innocent, will take on the guilt for all the wrong that his brothers had done. Jesus, though innocent, took on the sins of the world. Isn't that beautiful, that connection? But the brothers, they have one thing on their minds right now. They picture the look on their dad's face when they get home and they see him mourn again, his beloved son again gone. and they remember the guilt they felt for the last 20 years. They're still being burdened by guilt. I talked about this last week. Guilt has no expiration date. If you're hoping that one day that mistake from your past is one day just going to go away, I promise you it's not. The Lord will continue to convict until it's all out in the open. The lesson for us is simple. Don't let the guilt from your past keep you from the promise of your future. Don't let it hold you back. That mistake, that error you made, listen to your convictions. Have the courage to have the difficult conversations and trust that God's going to make all things right. Trust the Lord. Walk through it. God will help you. Joseph's brothers, they don't know it yet. They're about to be thrusted into dealing with their past. That grace window that God gives you when you do something wrong, there's a time of grace where God convicts you, and then eventually that window's closed and God reveals it and now it's public. Their grace window is about to close and everything's about to come out in the open. Here we are. Interesting. The one person, I want to talk about this for a second, who feels the most guilt for Benjamin right now is Judah. Why? Judah's story is interesting. 20 years ago, it was Judah's idea to sell Joseph off to be a slave. Now, 20 years later, before they made their journey back to Egypt, and Joseph was demanding that they bring Benjamin with them, it was Judah who said to his dad, hey, if anything happens to Benjamin, I will take full blame for the rest of my life. So Judah, the guy who once betrayed, is now standing up for and taking personal responsibility. And his story just gets better. This is huge in this story. So here we are at chapter 44, verse 14. It says, Joseph was still in the house when Judah and his brothers came in, and they threw themselves on the ground before him. Joseph said to them, what is this you have done? Don't you know that a man like me can find things out by divination? What can we say to my Lord? Judah replied, what can we say? How can we prove our innocence? God has uncovered your servant's guilt. We are now my Lord's slaves, ourselves and the one who was found to have the cup. But Joseph said, far be it from me to do such a thing. Only the man who was found to have the cup will become my slave. The rest of you go back to your father in peace. So again, the brothers say, if you want one of us, you get all of us. Before, the message was, take him. He's annoying. He's loved by God. We hate him. Here, 20 pieces of silver? Sure. We'll let you take him for free. And now it's been 20 years later. And they're saying, no, you can't just have Benjamin. If you want him, you've got all of us. There's no way we're going back home again without our brother. And Judah pleads his case in the following verses. This is kind of the end of his speech in verse 30. He says, so now, if the boy is not with us when we go back to your servant, my father, and if my father, whose life is closely bound up with the boy's life, sees that the boy isn't there, he will die. Your servants will bring the gray head of our father down to the grave in sorrow. Your servant guaranteed the boy's safety to my father. I said, if I do not bring him back to you, then I will bear the blame before you, my father, all my life. Now then, please let your servant remain here as my Lord's slave in place of the boy, and let the boy return with his brothers. So Judah, this is his moment. This is his time to shine. This is his redemption moment. He says, okay, if it's got to be just one brother that you want, then take me. I'll stay here as slave, but please let Benjamin go back home. I will take the place. I will bear the guilt. I will bear the shame of everything that's happened. Even though I didn't steal the cup, and I don't believe Benjamin stole it either, I will stand here in his place. This is Judah's redemption moment, but when I read this, I want to know why now? What changed? What got Judah to a point where 20 years ago he hated his brother, and now all of a sudden he's standing up for another? But over the last 20 years, he's lived with the consequences of his decision. Every day he's seen the pain it's caused his father. The memory of Joseph didn't fade like he hoped it would. It only deepened. And Judah is repentant now because God has been working on his soul. Over the last 20 years, Judah has matured. He has seen what betrayal costs, and he's seen what love demands. He's had a change of heart. Have you ever had a change of heart like that? You're probably not the same person you were 20 years ago. I'm just guessing. You've probably learned a few things. You may not even be the same person you were 5 years ago. You've probably grown in a few areas. That's what happens when God invades a heart. When you invite the Holy Spirit, you start to change the way you think, the way you act. And this is God been working here. Listen to this. It's not sudden. It's the slow, sacred work of God over the years, turning heartbreak into humility and brokenness into healing. God can do amazing things in a heart. It just takes some time. Sometimes it's instant, but it was slowly. God was shaping Judah's heart. God was using the visual of his father mourning and the guilt of holding back a secret. God's using all that to change him and shape him into a beautiful picture of who God is calling him to be. It's a picture of the love and the grace and the redemptive love of God. And Judah is foreshadowing the love of Jesus, and he has no clue of it yet. Think about it. Judah steps in to take the place of the guilty. He steps in. He offers himself as a substitute, motivated by the love he sees the Father has for the Son. Now let me talk about Jesus for a second. Jesus in heaven looks at God the Father, and God the Father looks at sinful humanity. And Jesus sees the love of his Father for his people, so Jesus says, don't worry, God, I'll go. Because I know you love them that much, God. So I'll go, I'll save them. Judah knows the love of his Father. So he steps in place as a substitute. And here's how it gets more beautifully redemptive. As you look in the book of Matthew, there's something called a genealogy, the very first chapter. Guess whose bloodline Jesus comes from? Judah's bloodline. Isn't that beautiful? The guy who sold his brother as a slave and now is offering to offer himself in place of another. And it's through his bloodline that Jesus says, or God says, I'm going to send Jesus through him. I want it to come through Judah and his bloodline because God wanted to redeem everything and make all things right. His mother Mary is related to Judah. Isn't that crazy? The brother who once betrayed his own flesh and blood chooses to stand in his place. And Jesus, our Savior, ultimately takes our place. This change in heart in Judah and his willingness to take the place is a foreshadowing of Jesus and the cross. You see how God is working everything out for good. And in the midst of all this whole thing, Joseph is watching. And he's hanging on to every word. He's watching as Judah pleads for his brother. And he continues to plead his case. Verse 34, Judah is talking. He says, how can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? No, do not let me see the misery that would come on my father. And this is huge. This is the climax of the whole story, I think. Chapter 45, verse 1. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, have everyone leave my presence. So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him. And Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still living? But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, come close to me. When they had done so, he said, I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. So it all comes out. Joseph can't take it anymore. He reveals who he is to his brothers. He finally lost it. T.D. Jakes said this. He said, his love was stronger than his memory. Isn't that good? His love for his brothers was stronger than his memory of what they did to him. His love was stronger. Both Joseph and his brothers, both of them have been in a famine. His brothers have been in a famine for food. Joseph has been in a famine for family, and both of them are hungry. Joseph has been holding this in this whole time. He's been playing these games. He's been trying to figure out who they are. And this whole time when he had the opportunity to give them what they deserve, he chooses the high road. He chooses love because his love was stronger than his memory. And I got thinking about us. I got thinking about me. And I thought, is my love stronger than my memory? If I was confronted face to face with some of the people that hurt me, could I love them? Could I offer grace to them? Can you love the person who has wronged you more than the memory of what they did to you? Listen to this. When your love becomes louder than your pain and your healing runs deeper than your hurt, you won't desire to get even. You'll desire reconciliation. See, vengeance feeds your flesh, but love releases your soul. The more you hold on to anger, the more you hold on to the pain, the more it continues to work in your soul. It takes a lot, I know. It takes a lot to reach out and love and forgive the people that have wronged you and hurt you. And sometimes the prayer you need to say to God is, Lord, make my love for them stronger than my memory of what they did to me. Lord, help me to love them more than the hurt they caused me. I said this last week, I'm going to say this again. This doesn't mean you become best friends with the people that have hurt you, especially in cases where there's a person in your life who it's just not safe for you to be around. They're a danger to you physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it may be. It's called being wise to love them and say, I got to love you from a distance. I forgive you. I love you. But I can't have you in my life right now. Maybe God's still working on their heart. Maybe they need to change. Maybe they're not ready to have that relationship with you. Even though you might be, maybe they're not ready. And you can have your love stronger than your memory and protect yourself from the hurt that they can cause you. If someone's not safe, it's okay to push them away and say, I love you, I forgive you, but I got to have my distance. For some of you, your memory is stronger than your love. Are you open to the Lord softening your heart? Will you let God use the pain for purpose? Will you walk in obedience even if it means loving the person who's caused you the most pain? Are you willing to trust God with that relationship? Are you willing to allow your love to be stronger than your memory? I heard a story once, recently, about a man who went to prison before he turned the age of 20. And he was sentenced to 50 years in prison. So he spends 50 years and things happen to him that are beyond what you could imagine. But while he's in there, he's at rock bottom. He finds the Lord. And when he comes out 50 years later, he's not angry. He's grateful for what he gained. And I think only one can do that. Only one can do that, and that's God. So he comes out 50 years later. Remember, it's before the age of 20. Comes out 50 years later, and he's going to school to pursue his dreams. And he's telling people about the love of Jesus and what Jesus has done for him. I mean, there's something significant about rock bottom. There's something significant about pain that God can shape and use in the life of a person to encourage them. For Joseph, rock bottom showed him that his love was stronger than his memory. And as I studied this passage, I thought, why did he cry? And I listened to a few sermons, and a lot of pastors say, well, he cried because of all the hurt and all the pain that he went through over the last 20 years. And I don't think that's why he cried. I think he cried because in that moment, it was revealed to him, he understood the why behind what he went through for the last 20 years. Looking at his brothers, knowing that because God placed him in Egypt, because God allowed him to interpret those dreams, He interpreted the dreams. They had food to now give to his family. He looks at everything that he went through, and he understood in that moment why he had to go through it. It all made sense. He didn't cry because of the suffering. He cried because he realized the purpose for his pain. He finally understood why God allowed it. He didn't cry over the betrayal. He didn't cry over the pit. He didn't cry over the prison cell. That's not why he was crying. He cried because the pain that previously made no sense to him now revealed its purpose to him, and he was overwhelmed with emotion. There are seasons that you walk through, good ones and bad ones, and when you're in them, it's very difficult to understand why. It's very difficult to understand, why did that happen to me? Now, I want to be careful here, because what I'm not saying, please hear this, what I'm not saying is that everything happens for a reason. By the way, don't tell that to somebody ever, especially when they're walking through something difficult. Don't tell them those words. It's not an encouragement, because then you have to try to explain to them why what happened to them happened on purpose. I'm not saying everything happens for a reason. What I'm saying is the things that happen, God will use to bring good. God will use for redemption. God will use to bring people together. God will use to fulfill his promise in your life. The seasons don't always make sense when you're in them, but oftentimes when you're out of them, you say, I see now. I see why. You may say, I thought losing that job was going to break me, but it freed me. And it taught me to trust God like never before. You may say, I thought I would never get past that breakup, but now I see that person was just an anchor holding me back, and they were hurting me and keeping me from what God had me to do. Or you may say, when I got the diagnosis, I thought that was the end for me, but now I see how God used that to get me to listen. And God showed me his love, and now I'm more in love with Jesus than ever before. When you open your eyes to what God is doing, you'll start to see there was purpose in the pain. There's good stuff that's come out of what I went through. And Joseph realizes this, and he explains this to them. In verse 5, he says, and now don't be distressed and don't be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now, there's been a famine in the land, and for the next 5 years, there will be no plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So then, it was not you who sent me here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household, and ruler of all of Egypt. Don't you see? He sees everything now. That's why he's crying. He understands. He's like, you guys didn't send me here. This whole time, I've been thinking it was you. I've been angry with you. I sat in a prison cell and I blamed you for it. But now I see the whole picture. Now I see it wasn't you who sent me here. It was God, for God had a greater purpose than I even realized. And that's why he's crying. He's emotional. Joseph thought he was being buried, but he was just being planted for a purpose. He thought he was buried. God said, I'm not burying you. I have planted you. I have great things for you to do. I have great plans for your life. And unfortunately, you got to walk through this in order for the plans to be fulfilled, in order for the good to come out of this. And he realized it was God, and he wept. And he realized that he wasn't forgotten and betrayed. He was chosen. He wasn't forgotten. He was chosen. And he was the only one of his brothers who could handle being in that position and not letting his ego get to him. He's the only one who could look at his accusers in the face and say, I'm going to love you. I'm going to offer you a meal. I'm going to give you food. I'm going to give you your silver back. He's the only one who could handle that position. The rest of them, they couldn't handle it. He thought he was being buried. He was being planted. He was chosen. Now, you may ask this question, and this is a fair question and kind of a deep theological question. You may say, okay, so why did God allow the famine? If Joseph had to be sold as a slave and go through suffering, why the famine? Why would God allow the famine? And it's a fair question. And I'm not going to tell you why, but I'll tell you what I know. Without the famine, the Israelites never go to Egypt. Without the famine, they never become slaves. And this part will blow your mind. while they're slaves there's a guy named Moses who's sent to set them free. And there's these plagues, right? You know about the plagues in Exodus? And you know what the last plague is? It's the Passover. When they're supposed to kill a lamb and smear the blood on the doorposts. Well, you know what Jesus talks about in the New Testament? He calls himself the Lamb of God. He becomes the ultimate sacrifice, his blood poured out. You see, now I'm not telling you why all this happened. I'm just telling you what I know and what I see. Everything is connected to the famine. See, God, oftentimes we are our minds are so small, and I don't mean that to offend you. It's just true. Our minds we can't comprehend what God is doing. We can't see the full picture. All we see is what's right in front of us. All that Joseph saw was suffering, prison, in a place of leadership, and then accused, and then all of his different robes taken from him. This is all that Joseph sees, but now he looks back at the whole thing, and he doesn't even see the future yet. He doesn't even know about Jesus. He doesn't even know about the Passover. He doesn't even know about any of that. But do you see how God is doing something so much bigger than your life? And the things that are happening in your life right now are small things maybe to you, but what if they have a larger significance in the future, generations beyond you? What if the decisions that you make today are not just impacting you and your children? What if the decisions you make today impact your children and their children? And their children, and their children. The decisions that you make, the way God is using you, God is not burying you, he's planting you for purpose. And God is using you greater and greater ways than you even realize. It's amazing what God does. God had purpose for Joseph's pain. And he recognized it was never his brothers. Through one man's suffering, many were fed. I want to tell you one more connection to Jesus because I love Jesus a lot. Through one man's suffering, all were forgiven. He was sold, he was beaten, he was betrayed, he was crucified, but he knew, Jesus knew, I have to fall so they can rise. And Jesus knew, I have to be crushed so that they can be healed. Jesus knew all that. And he saw the love of his Father for his children. And he says, God, I'll go. God, I'll go. I'll pay the price for their sins. Sometimes pain has a greater purpose than you can see right now. And so now, as we wrap up this story, Joseph recognizes now what's happened. He sees the good in all of it. In verses 12 through 15, Joseph says, you can see for yourselves, and so can my brother Benjamin, that it is really I who am speaking to you. Tell my father about all the honor accorded to me in Egypt and about everything you have seen, and bring my father down here quickly. I love this verse right here. Then he threw his arms around his brother Benjamin and wept. And Benjamin embraced him, weeping. And he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. Afterward, his brothers talked with him. Now, I don't know about you, but I've got someone in my family. I didn't even put this in my notes. I wasn't planning on sharing this. I have someone in my family that I would desperately love to have this story with. Someone that I've chosen to love from a distance. But if God changed his heart, I can't even fathom. If God changed his heart, if God changed my heart, if God were able to bring us together. Do you have a story like that? Maybe it's not a family member, maybe it's a friend. Is there someone in your life that you so desperately want this kind of an embrace with? If God changed their heart, could you imagine restoring that relationship that's been broken? It's complicated, right? It's complicated. I don't even know where to go from here. I pray that over you. I pray that over me. That God would restore what's been broken, what's been lost. And I want to add on to that prayer that God would reveal the purpose, that God would reveal something good that has come out of that in your life and in their life. Joseph chooses to embrace these men. He forgives them. He could have exposed them. He could have reminded them of their guilt. He could have executed them, but instead he embraces them. And this is the gospel. This is the story of Jesus. I want to close with Jesus here today. When Jesus had every reason to be angry at the people who mocked him on the cross, instead he looked at them and he said, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. When he had every reason to say, God, do you see them? You see how they're talking to me right now, God? Make sure you don't share your blessings with them, God. That wasn't Jesus' heart. He said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. That was the love of Jesus. He went to the cross for people, even those and especially those who hated him, who mocked him, who beat him, who abused him. And there are people today who can't physically hurt Jesus' body, but they hate him. And Jesus says, I died for them too. I love them too. I offer forgiveness for them too. Don't you know nobody is beyond the grace of God? Nobody is beyond saving. Jesus did this once and for all of us. Jesus looks at you and in the eyes, and he says, I know what you did, and my blood is enough. I know who you've been. I know the mistakes you've made, and my blood is enough. I died for you. You are mine. I forgive you. In this story, you and I, we're the brothers. We're the guilty ones. And Jesus, instead of punishment, offers grace. You may have been running from his grace for a long time. I'm telling you today, it's time to accept this grace that Jesus has lavished upon you. It's time to turn your life over to Jesus and embrace the grace that God has given you. If you haven't given your life to Jesus yet, I want to ask you, number one, what are you waiting for? And two, do you want to do it today? Do you want to give your life to Jesus here today? This grace of God is real, it's alive, and it's available to each and every one of us. I want to lead you in a prayer. I'm going to give two opportunities here. The first prayer is going to be those of you that want to give your lives to Jesus right here, right now, today. The second one is for those of you that want to recommit your life to Jesus. Maybe it's been a while. Maybe you did it yesterday and you want to do it again today. Whatever it may be. You want to recommit your life to Jesus, you can do it. I'm going to lead you in two prayers here. Why don't you pray with me? If you want to accept Jesus in your heart, you say this prayer. Say, Jesus, I give you my heart. Thank you for the cross, Jesus. Thank you for forgiving me of my sins, Lord. And Jesus, starting today, right now, in this very room, in this very place, at this very minute, at this hour, Lord, I give you my life. I surrender my life to you. Thank you for saving me, Jesus. Thank you for going to the cross for me. I give you my life, Lord. I follow you, Jesus. I don't know what I'm doing. I need your help, Lord. But I give you my life right now. The second prayer, if you want to recommit your life to Jesus, say this prayer with me. Say, Jesus, I give you my life again. And I'm going to give you my life again tomorrow and the next day and every day after that, Lord. I commit myself to you. Jesus, will you lead me in my decisions? I want to honor you with my life. I commit my life to you. Thank you for your grace. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this message. I pray it encouraged your soul. Hey, you are an important part of this church. If you are encouraged by this ministry, we ask you to pray for us, and we also want to give you an opportunity to give. This church is supported by those faithful people who honor God with their giving, and you can do that by clicking the link below. Have a great day.